Hey everybody, I'm back for part 2. Like I said, we're going to be dealing with Law and Order Organized Crime, and this is the one that stars Chris Meloni, and we're going to be talking about what happened in his part of the crossover event. Stay tuned. Yes, we get different music, but the same music. It's the same music with a techno kind of beat, kind of tech beat, not techno, but kind of tech. And we hear new verbiage. In the nation's largest city, in the vicious and violent members of the underworld are hunted by the detective of the Organized Crime Control Bureau. These are their stories. Dun dun. So let me read that again. In the nation's largest city, the vicious and violent members of the underworld are hunted by the detectives of the Organized Crime Control Bureau. These are their stories. I'm so excited. We start with a flashback to see what happened. We know that Kathy is dead. The case has been taken away from the SVU, and Elliott has come to find out basically what happened. We see Elliott at the courthouse. We see him sneak down the stairs to the back stairs, go to the waiting area, and he starts talking Italian. He starts speaking Italian or something to these guys in the cell and basically tells them that Sasha Linsky was murdered and that his ID was found in this abandoned building or warehouse. Well, basically, before we get to that point, he tells them that Sasha Linsky has been murdered, and he tells them that the evidence to that, some of their paperwork and money laundering stuff has come up where, he works at the auto body shop. Well, we know that, but looks like a new district attorney is going to be coming up, or a new attorney in the scene. It's a young black woman, and I don't know her name as of yet, but it looks like she's going to be working with him. But she doesn't want him to ruin her trial. She doesn't want him to ruin her whole case. So they basically take him up out of there because Elliott's mad at this point, and he should be. His wife was murdered. So after that point, he walks off. He goes to talk to his boss. The boss says, look, you were recruited as my poster boy for the program. That's why it works. We had you up in Rome doing what you do. Now you come back here. You can't just be showing out like this. You got to go by the book, So see, Elliott tells him, look, I want some answers. I want some closure for myself. I want some closure for my kids. And, and then he walks up out of there, and I understand how he feels because now, he has to bury his wife and he has to explain to his children why she's dead in the first place. Well, we hear the music. Like I say, it's the dramatic music. It's the same music. If you listen really close to it, the same Law and Order SVU music or Law and Order period music, but it's got that tech beat to it. Like I said, well, it looks great. The whole scenery, the money on the table, the money laundering schemes, all of that. It looks great when they first, bring it in. And we see that Dick Wolf is still producing this with some other people now, but he's still on it. So, like I said, he's already talked to his boss. He's been informed that, the case has been given to someone else. It's no longer Olivia's. So now we see Stabler in the park. And when we see him in the park, we see Olivia. We see Olivia, and she walks over to him, and she says, here are my case files, just in case you want to know what's going on or what we did, so you can go from there. And he says, thank you. I really appreciate it. He wants to reminisce a little bit more, but she's not having it. She's still angry. And so I would be angry too. He tells her thank you. He has a few words about her award ceremony, that he wrote her a letter because basically he hates speaking publicly, and that, he gives the letter to her. And he says, look, read it, throw it away, burn it, do whatever you want, but here it is. So she takes it. But before she takes it, we see Noah. Noah runs up because, like I told you, they're in the park. It's snowing. And he runs up, and what she doesn't do is introduce him to Noah. She just runs off with Noah. That's telling you something right there. She loves her son, and the way she loved Elliott, you would think that she wants to introduce her son to Elliott, but she doesn't. She's still kind of mad, and I don't blame her because he just left and then say nothing. We see Elliott talk to this girl. She's obviously a computer artist, some type of hacker, maybe a white hat hacker, which means somebody that does good. And that he takes her this information. She finds out where the burner cell came from, where it's been. They find out that this building is where it's been stationed at primarily. They break into this building using SWAT and some of the guys that he works with now. They break into the building. They find out that Rafi the poet, this drug dealer, was working out of this building. They find Elliott's ID in this building, along with some other papers in Italian. Well, that's kind of sketchy. I mean, why is this information in this building? Obviously, they really were after Elliott and not Kathy. And she just, was a tragic loss. And I hate to say that. But Rafi the poet, he's dead. I guess he's been murdered at some point. And this office space that he had really belongs to this guy called Mr. Sinatra, who is an older Italian gentleman who happens to be a racist. We're going to put it out there. He was a racist in regards to what he thought about black people and Black Lives Matter and even his own grandchildren. And we'll get into that more, but this is what we're going to talk about right now. Now, there's a picture of him. Like I said, his ID is in there. And what he does is he goes to Green Haven Correctional Facility, and he tells this guy that used to be the lawyer for Mr. Sinatra, why don't you set up a meet with Mr. Sinatra? I want to talk to him. And he goes, well, what should I tell him? He says, what stayed in Puglia did not stay in Puglia, because the name of this particular episode is called What Happens in Puglia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Puglia. But anyway, Puglia, when he was dealing with that, he raided some people who were dealing with personal protection equipment and were using false personal protection equipment or N95 masks that were bogus and trying to ship them internationally to be sold and used in various places. But this stuff wasn't up to snuff. So basically he arrested them, so he's wondering, does this have something to do with that? And in actuality, it kind of does. Now, we do see him go to visit to find out that Rafi, the guy that was killed, this particular drug dealer who was using this building and where they found his information, was murdered, but he did have a relative. Well, his mother. His mother's name is Professor Wheatley. She's a professor. Rafi was her son. We've seen her before. We've seen her in lots of stuff. But where I remember her from was Bones. Anybody ever seen the series Bones? I used to be a good series. My daughter is watching it currently again. But anyway, she really likes it. But he tells her that he knows where or who killed her son. So she looks around like, I can't help you, but basically you know who killed him? And he says, well, my wife was murdered. And she says, I'm really sorry. And then he asked her, when she tells him she can't give him any information about what he's particularly looking for, that she has no idea that his father was an addict. His father died of a heroin overdose years ago. And that no, Elliott can't talk to him in regards to his son, Rafi, the poet. And she says, I can't help you. And he says, well, I do have one final question. And he basically asked her, how long does it take? That kind of broke me, y'all. It kind of got me. Because how long does it take? I guess he was referring to how long does it take to grieve someone that you love? And we know that it takes various times. I still cry about my ex-husband. He died a couple of years back, but still bothers me. One of my best friends still bothers me. So it takes a while. Each person grieves differently. So anyway, it's still very fresh for him. You can tell that because it's on his mind and he's still working the case, So in the car, we see him look at some pictures of his wife, in Rome, where they probably were stationed. They had an apartment. He was trying to tell Olivia about it. She didn't want to hear any of that. They go to the prison. They ask the lawyer, like I said, to get in contact with Mr. Sinatra, and he agrees to meet them. And we see him, deal with him a little bit later. But the next thing that we see is the funeral. We see a gravesite. We see that his children are there. We see that Olivia is there. Out of respect to Kathy, she has decided to come. he's a broken man. He's paying his respects. He's trying to be stoic for his kids. You see all 5 of them there. We see the Eli breaks down. He says he's missing his mom. He falls on the ground right in front of her grave as they, turn her grave, her coffin to go down into the gravesite. This is really touching, and it was really hard for me because we just lost an aunt of mine, and being at the gravesite is the worst, but stay focused. Anyway, he crosses himself, and then he leaves, and he's visibly shaken. You can see that. But he gets a call, and he tells his kids to go home and start dinner without him because he's got to go to work. And Olivia hugs the kids, and he wants to tell Olivia thank you again for being there, but she just kind of walks to the front. She's still angry. You know what I'm saying? She's still got a little thing like she mad. And do you blame her, though? Do you? I don't. She says nothing. Elliott takes his call. He goes ahead and deals with what he's going to do. Now, Mr. Sinatra asked him when he meets him, what am I doing here? And Elliott shows him the ID that was in his building. And he says, the guys that I arrested in Puglia making the fake N95 mask internationally have something to do with you. He asked him, did you try to kill me? And he tells him, he says, look, if I wanted you dead, you be in the ground right now and not Kathy. I don't make mistakes like that. So we see Mr. Sinatra go to his son's house, and his grandsons are there. And what I noticed is that his grandsons are black. Okay. They're mixed. Like his son is Italian and his grandsons are African-American and Italian. So they're mixed, just like my children. Except mine are not Italian. But anyway, they're stay focused. So Rafi was working with his son, and his son Richie, he calls him a stupid little meatball because he's always getting into trouble. He tells his son that the cops murdered a cop's wife. He tells him that the guys that his son hired, obviously, to kill Elliott, ended up killing his wife. And that's why he calls him a meatball, because he's messing up. So what we find out later is that Mrs. Rafi's mother, what we find out later is that Rafi's mother was correct in what she said, that her ex-husband, well, he wasn't her ex-husband because he never married her, she said, but that Rafi's dad, who died of the heroin addiction, was not her husband, but this guy is her ex-husband. So Richard, Mr. Sinatra's son, who has changed his last name to Wheatley out of disrespect for his dad, just to piss him off because he hates his dad, was married to her at one time. And her son Richie and Dana, they've obviously decided to go live with their father because he's very wealthy and very powerful, and they probably just love their dad. And they know, and their dad has married another woman, a much younger woman, by the way, who happens to also be African American. So we see Mr. Sinatra in this house, and you know that he's a racist from the profile that they told about him before, that he doesn't like Black Lives Matter, he doesn't like African Americans, he doesn't believe in the mixing of races, which is bogus, because who in this whole world is not mixed anymore with something? So anyway, the crime team that's in charge of this is now under another jurisdiction. It's been given to another new district attorney. I don't know her name yet, but she's a beautiful young African-American lady. He tells Richie that, he's messing up and that he needs to get it under control. And Richard tells him, hit the bricks, get out, because I don't need to listen to you. You ain't been telling me stuff to do. Don't tell me now. So 2 people on a motorcycle take off and try to kill Elliott and Rafi's mom, because he goes to visit her again and says, look, you didn't tell me that you were married to this guy. And she says, well, yeah, I'm divorced. So Angela's telling him, yeah, I'm divorced. So what? So she knows more than what she's saying, but she's not going to say anything. And then with these guys on these motorcycles trying to kill her, were they trying to kill her or were they trying to kill Elliott? That's what we really need to know. Now, he gets a message later to meet at the Wonder Wheel, which is this Ferris wheel, at 9 o'clock, because this person that's telling him through an encrypted message at his new office location with the new district attorney or attorney that's working on this particular case, he's been assigned there, or he's assigned himself there, because he's told her, look, I'll work good for you. I won't get on your nerves. Just let me be part of this process. She says, okay. He gets an encrypted message at his laptop to meet someone at 9 o'clock at the Wonder Wheel. Well, we know and we find out that it's Mr. Sinatra. Mr. Sinatra is about to tell Elliott who killed his wife. And I'm led to believe that he's going to tell him it was his son. Well, we see that his son is at the Wonder Wheel. He tells his dad to get on the Ferris wheel with him and to not be a meatball and to get up there with him. And we see that the operator of the Ferris wheel takes them all the way up to the top. Well, you can see that Mr. Sinatra may be afraid of heights. You can tell by the conversation with his son that they've obviously done this before, but he fears his son. And you can tell because the way he starts talking to him. He tells his son he's sorry, that he didn't treat him well, that he didn't mean to be a racist. He says, I don't believe in the blacks and the whites mixing, and he's sorry. And that, they can work together to make this profitable, that this is a great thing, because his son tells him the pandemic is making him rich, okay? And he says, well, love is love, son. And he says, yeah, love is love, says his son. Well, his son is clearly still mad at him because of how he was treated in his life. And Elliott arrives to see the Wonder Wheel working because he doesn't get there at first. We see that Mr. Sinatra and his son Richard are up there. And I know something about to happen because the way he talking to his dad, you can't be talking to people like that and something ain't about to happen. Either you finna get slapped or he finna get slapped, okay? Something finna happen. So he brings it down. Mr. Sinatra is in there. He's been shot in the head. Elliott takes a picture of him with his eyes open because his eyes are closed. He opens his eyes, takes the picture. I don't know why he's doing that. And then he anonymously calls the police after he's left the area to let them know that there's been a murder and that Mr. Sinatra is dead. He doesn't say who he was. He doesn't say who he is. He just says, there's been a murder. Now, we know Elliott's no fool. So Elliott's using this information for something, because Elliott's looking around. He's looking for the killer or killers. He doesn't see anybody. Now, his ex-wife, his wife is dead. We already know that. But the next thing that we see is Mr. Sinatra's son going home, and his girlfriend is obviously upset, or his new wife, we should say, because his ex-wife is sitting on the floor with his dogs. And she's like, can you get these beasts off of me? And she says, I could have handled it. You didn't have to send those guys after him. I could have handled it. They shot up the school where I worked at. And she was like, I could have taken care of everything. And he's like, look, you can't come in my house talking to me like that. That's why I divorced you before. And she's like, but this used to be my house. Okay, it's something there right there. When a black woman say, but this used to be my house, like you didn't put this sister out, she still got some animosity and some anger in regards to that, because it's the way she said it. But she said what she said. Now, you can see that she's, like I said, still angry. So she says, where is Lucinda? I'm just going to say Lucinda because I don't remember the name of the maid that she mentioned. But she's like, I'm hungry. I'm going to ask her to fix me something to eat. So he grabs her close. Richard grabs Angela close like he's about to kiss her. And then he walks upstairs because his new wife is like, look, I thought you was taking me to the restaurant tonight. And he's like, yeah, they keeping it open late for us so we can be there. So you can tell she's shaking up a little bit. Angela is his ex-wife, but she ain't paying it no mind. She finna go in the kitchen and get a sandwich or something, okay? So obviously she's not so afraid of him because she has children with him who reside in that home, and she visits without, letting him know she's coming. So that's something. So we see Olivia at the hotel where Elliott is staying. Elliott rushes in there. He's flustered. He's flustered. He's looking around, and rightly so, because the guy he's supposed to be meeting to tell him who killed his wife is now dead. So Liv says, hey, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. Why are you here? And she's like, well, you gave me this letter and I wanted to talk about the letter. And he's like, look, I want to talk to you right now, but I can't. So his phone rings. He gets ready to catch the elevator, and we see Olivia looking like, what is going on? And then we cut to black. We know Olivia is no fool. We know Stabler is no fool. Now, is he going to crack this case by himself? Or is Olivia going to come in? Because, she's kind of by the book now. We don't want her to risk her job doing this. And he hasn't spoken to her in years. But we know our girl here, she be thinking. We know that she about to think about something that can help him. And I can't wait to see what it is. Like I said, the music is the same. New scenery. New people. This looks like it's finna be good. And I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. Because as you can see, it is a crossover event. Now, what I was wrong about is I didn't see Carisi crossover as the ADA. I don't know if he will work with them in the future in regards to this, because obviously Stabler has no reason to go back to Rome right now. He just buried Kathy and his kids are there, and he's trying to reestablish himself with his children, I guess, and to find out who murdered his wife. At the same time, staying alive himself. So I look forward to chatting with you guys soon in regards to next week's episode. So if you guys will go ahead and give me a big like and leave some comments below for your girl and share this video. I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.